Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the second webinar in the 4-webinar series launched by the Department of Biotechnology in association with DBT Wellcome Trust India Alliance, where we discuss how DBT, with its autonomous institutes and public sector undertakings, is designing science and biotech solutions to tackle the global health challenge of COVID-19. My name is Banyakar. I work with DBT Wellcome Trust India Alliance, and I'll be your host for this webinar. While the first webinar in the series with Dr. Renu Swarup, Secretary DBT, Dr. Alka Sharma, Advisor DBT, and Dr. Kavita Singh, Mission Director, National Biopharma Mission BIRAC, discussed DBT's multi-pronged research strategy and action plan to address COVID-19. In this second webinar, we will discuss the response of the startup community, the ecosystem to COVID-19. The startups and the innovation community across India have responded very quickly to the challenge posed by the COVID-19 pandemic. A host of new innovations have been developed, and in terms of the response of science and technology to the pandemic, these innovations include diagnostics, vaccines, novel therapeutics, repurposing of drugs, and various other interventions. DBT has been actively supporting and working with startups. As of now, from DBT's startups and incubator network, there are over 100 solutions in the market. So to discuss more on how DBT is leveraging the strength of the startup industry and the ecosystem to respond to this COVID-19 pandemic, we have with us today Dr. Manish Diwan, Head of Strategic Partnership and Entrepreneurship Development, BIRAC, Dr. Tasleem Arif Sayed, Director Discovery to Innovation Accelerator Program, CEO CCAM, and Dr. Jitendra Sharma, Managing Director and Founder CEO of Andhra Pradesh MedTech Zone. But before we begin with our speakers, I would like to make a few housekeeping announcements for everyone. This webinar is being recorded and it will soon be available on the YouTube channel of India Alliance. So if you miss it, do go to our channel and have a look at it. We would request all of you to share your questions during the webinar by using the question box on the console. These will be taken up by our speakers at the end of the 3 presentations. We have a 10-minute slot for the question and answer session. And lastly, if you like to share anything about the webinar on social media platforms or your social media handles, do consider tagging the DBT and India Alliance and the speakers and their organizations, and use the hashtag DBT webinars COVID-19. So with that, I would like to invite our first speaker for today's webinar, Dr. Manish Diwan, to tell us more about the role of strategic partnerships and entrepreneurship in tackling this pandemic. Welcome, Dr. Diwan. Over to you.
So I represent BIRAC, glad to be here in the discussion panel. As you know, BIRAC is a not-for-profit organization, a Section 8 company carved out of Department of Biotechnology to specifically facilitate startups, entrepreneurs, medium and large-scale companies to undertake high-risk innovation. So it brings and empowers as a central agency the entire biotech ecosystem in the country through entrepreneurship, facilitation, funding, incubation, access to the startups, to the entrepreneurs, mentorship access, which includes technical, business, IP, legal, as well as bringing opportunities to them so they can scale not only in India but also outside India. In the COVID, as you would understand, that was a sudden challenge and an unprecedented activity in the ecosystem, and we are very happy to see how the startup ecosystem has responded. The startups had pivoted towards finding solutions to the COVID. So did enabling agencies like DBT BIRAC also did the same. So around March, when we realized that this is a challenge which is there to stay for a little longer, we started reaching out to all our community and all our community partners, and we quickly populated who all startups are working in a domain which can address COVID situation. So there was a large effort, and we were able to garner around 1,000+ startups which were either related to COVID-like situation where they can pivot and quickly facilitate development of products and technologies. So we rolled out 3 specific funding schemes. One was a consortium call. I think in the last webinar we heard about that. That consortium call was called up by DBT BIRAC and National Biopharma Mission to facilitate solutions which could develop in a time range of 0 to 24 months.
Dr. Diwan, sorry to interrupt you. I think your slides are not moving, and also we cannot see them on full screen. Can you please minimize the screen and probably put them on presenter mode again?
So,
yes.
We have startup from 75 plus startups and large industries have been facilitated under this so far. There was another immediate activity that we did. We brought in a new facilitation which we called as fast track review and funding support, wherein we looked at solutions which could be deployable within 0 to 3 months in the market. And we created this provision to invite applications and review them in a very short time. The committee could meet almost like every day, depending upon the inflow of the proposals. Then we also created another opportunity, which was a co-funding opportunity, where not only BIRAC but like-minded organization can come together, and we could do a co-funding in order to facilitate startup solutions deployment in the market. So in all, I think we were able to harness quite a bit of solutions which were funded and are going into this domain. Besides the regulatory facilitation through First Hub, which is we started rolling out every Friday of the month, every week, every Friday, weekly, which was dedicated only to facilitate queries and consultation only for startups which are working on COVID. So that got rolled out, and we have like more than 200 startups query got resolved and addressed through this effort. Among the various startup solutions which went into market and have been deployed, that now includes diagnostic kits. We will hear some numbers. I'm sure Jitendra is going to talk about that. We have raised the capacity for manufacturing of such diagnostic kits, ranging from, let's say, 1,200, 1,500 rupees per kit. Now we are looking at indigenized kit examples which are now rolling out for 250 rupees. Ventilators, monitoring device, remote consultation solutions, technologies, as well as PPEs. The vaccines and drug repurposing effort is in motion, and it also involves not only startups but medium and large scale companies as well. Some examples which are from startup ecosystem which have gone into market, and they are now available for people to adopt them. It includes full body coverage, face shields, masks, hand sanitizer solutions, oxygen generators, remote consultation, telemedicine, as well as previous solutions which are aligned and can be adopted in the, let's say, step down facility, low resource settings, isolation wards. That includes some of these examples. I would also like to emphasize the strength of BIRAC and BIRAC's partners' strength. We have a bio incubator network that is spread out across the country, along with the regional centers. We are very happy to report that about 125 solutions from all these partnered BioNest incubators, startups affiliated to them, are now in motion to address the COVID situation. The partners actually made an effort to provide high-end concentrated mentoring, information sharing to all the startup networks. So we got more than 200 webinars, events, workshops, trainings conducted between March and today. And it has reached more than 20,000 as in participant attendees. Some of our BioNest incubators have actually recognized that this is a difficult time for startups in terms of their funding capacities. So they've actually extended a waiver on the rental fee from 25% to almost 100% for 3 months. So that's a huge effort and contribution by the BioNest incubator network. The incubator network, if you see, besides the COVID, that has now spread out across the ecosystem, 50 of them. And if you try and map the startups located across India in the region, you would see it almost overlaps and mimics the BioNest incubator network. In 2017, we had about 1,700 plus biotech startups. And if you look at 2 years later, the numbers of startups have actually doubled in all these regions. We hope that in 2020, post-COVID, and henceforth, the ecosystem grows further, and there are more number of startups which would originate, and some of the gray areas which are not covered, we will have many bubbles from them, so that the startup network can cater to not only current COVID situation, post-COVID challenges as well. The numbers we are looking at in the startups which are anticipated to grow, they are about 10,000, which is about 3 to 4-fold as we are seeing today. And a lot of them are health tech startups. In order to cater to that growing requirement, BIRAC DBT would continue to support them all the way from ideation to proof of concept validation and commercialization, including the partners' strength, ecosystem strength that can come together and power them up to progress to their objectives of commercialization and deployment, not only in a local region, but across states, across India, as well as outside India too. So we hope that this ecosystem would grow, and the startups products in the market could grow 4 to 5 folds from today. And we anticipate these startups to become medium scale industries, and add to the overall portfolio of large of India as a one basket, which offers products, technologies that are innovative, affordable, addressing unmet need in the COVID times as well as post-COVID times for the ecosystem put together. So I would rest here, and thank you so much for having me here. And I congratulate the entire ecosystem partners who have come together to rise up to the occasion and address the COVID pandemic situation. Thank you very much. Over to you, Banya.
Thank you, Dr. Diwan, and we join you in congratulating the startup ecosystem in rising up to the occasion. And I thank you for a very, very comprehensive roundup of all that BIRAC has been doing and plans to do to help everyone overcome the COVID-19 and beyond COVID-19 also. Now, I would like to invite Dr. Jitendra Sharma to give us an overview of the workings of the Andhra Pradesh MedTech Zone and what they have been doing in these couple of months to tackle the COVID-19 pandemic. Welcome, Dr. Sharma.
We are a global medtech city because we extend about 8 kilometers of geographic location, entirely dedicated to medical technology. So it is by far the world's only dedicated medical technology zone. It's not an SEZ, which means it is not customs duty and tariff driven. It is driven by science and technology support that we provide to companies and startups. The AMTZ, the opening slide shows what it is, what does it do. We have on the map of AMTZ, what you see on the bottom left is a laboratory district. This district provides for all the testing, validation, prototyping services to all the companies in the zone and startups across the country. Some now coming from many other parts of the world. The one on the which is in the red, the green, the blue, and the light blue are zones defined for manufacturing units depending upon their product segment requirements. Now, the reason why AMTZ is so special is because today, if a startup or a company were to make a product, there is no place, particularly in medical technology, where all the services that they need can be offered in one single place. Let me take an example. If you need to make a non-invasive IR thermometer, you would first need a design. So you need AutoCAD and all those designing facilities. Then you need a mold, which is done in a tool room. Then you need injection molding. If your cabinet and cassette is 3D printed, you need 3D printing. Then you need supply of components. Then you need an integration facility. Then you need a pre-compliance lab, the electronics lab, the electrical safety lab, the EMI, EMC chamber, the biomaterial lab, depending upon the components and product profile. Then you need a sterilization and packaging unit. Then you need a logistics supply chain. You also need a Bureau of Indian Standards facilitation cell. You also need a tech transfer or design validation, design license support cell, and you need a market access gateway. Now, I have simply mentioned in 2 sentences what you need, but for an entrepreneur, this is a 2 to 5 year journey. And that journey actually takes 2 to 5 years because these facilities, even if they are there in India, are scattered all over. And therefore, and these services sometimes are sector agnostic. So when I actually apply for a mold for an IR thermometer or a ventilator cassette, they might, the tool room might already be doing a mold for next 3 months for some example toys or umbrellas or pressure cookers. Now, these centers are sector agnostic. So what we did at AMTZ is to capitalize and build all the centers required in the entire product innovation and production value chain and put them in one single place, which cut shorts the journey of an innovator or a company from 2 to 5 years to 3 to 6 months. That's because one building after another, they can actually walk in and get their jobs done or do it themselves. In central scientific facilities that are shared facilities, but are highly industrial in nature, highly humongous in nature. They are operated under international license, so the services that one may use carry the validity across the entire global market value chain. So some of the facilities and designs I have shown on the top. One of world's largest 3D printing center. What you see full of absorbers, the conical structures, is one of world's largest electromagnetic interference center. You see a tool room and so on, making the journey of an innovator happier and progressive. Now I come to just three examples. Example one is that when COVID started, we needed ventilator supply, and we took upon ourselves the task of producing 15,000 ventilators. We are on track, despite a large number of gaps that existed in manufacturing of such complex medical devices. While working with several companies in the zone to produce, and these are live production pictures of ventilators that you see, we also supported 22 startups in ventilator space at various stages of their product realization process. So some of them might be in design, some might not be having a suitable turbine, some might need a test, some might need a standard, and all those continue to be supported by us. The second example is of diagnostic kits. We have 6 companies with us that are producing RT-PCR, ELISA, both IgG and IgM diagnostic kits for COVID, as well as for other infectious diseases. However, we also have 12 startups at various stages of their innovation chain, taking our support and being part of our exemplary value system. 3, which is a very nice example of an actual innovation on ground. While there are many sample collection vans across the country, there was no sample testing mobile system in the country. So we created something called iLab, and thanks to Department of Biotechnology for that, particularly the leadership shown by the Secretary DBT, Dr. Enu Sarupji, that we created under her, with her support, on a Bharat Benz chassis, an entire infectious disease profiling laboratory with a BSL2 cabinet and clean rooms fitted with all required diagnostic equipment to test the infectious samples then and there. This lab can actually provide close to 1,000 tests a day, can be deployed in remotest of the locations because it comes with entire AHU clean room built unit with machines and moves on a truck chassis. What is more important is that you can actually disengage the container from the automotive chassis and put it on goods train, and you can actually ship it anywhere. Similarly to India has become in last 4 months world's second largest producer of PPE and N95 masks. We created a center of excellence with the support of Ministry of Textiles called Textura, which is now producing close to 4,000 PPE kits and about 40,000 N95 masks a day. And also one of India's largest medical textile testing laboratories now with us, providing services to manufacturers across the zone. Now, with regards to innovators and startups, because I know the DBT Wellcome Alliance partnership as well as BIRAC, they are extremely forward-looking in terms of innovation support and creating good profile programs for innovators and entrepreneurs. In fact, DBT, BIRAC, Wellcome Trust, this alliance is one of world's best today, particularly in terms of its ability to reach the tier 2 and tier 3 towns and innovators and entrepreneurs there, rather than just being oriented towards the large scale incubators that we see in Boston or Cambridge. Now, particularly for innovators, we have 4 exemplary strategies that we have kept forward and are working with innovators to support them. We have 2 incubators in our zone. One is funded by the Niti Aayog, Government of India, and that's known as Medi Valley. The second incubator that we have is funded by DBT BIRAC, and that's known as Bio Valley. These 2 incubators provide support to large number of incubatees, startups, entrepreneurs in various stages of their innovation value chain. For them, we have come out with 4 very specific agendas. Number 1 any incubatee or startup working on any COVID-related medical technology, the rent has been waived for the entire duration of their incubatee agreement. That's one. Two, all the testing fees required for their prototypes that are performed, the tests are performed within various centers and laboratories of AMTZ. The fees have been absorbed by AMTZ, and the testing fees are zero. Three prototypes of any COVID-related product by any incubatee or startup is funded by AMTZ. Which means the first three prototypes is not something that will create a financial load on the incubatee. And four, under the Indo-UK joint program, AMTZ and the Foreign Commission of United Kingdom in India, we are about to launch a 50 lakh package for selecting high-end startups with which has delivered outcomes in complex technologies targeting COVID, so that we can support them for rapid scale up. So right from manufacturing to research, innovation support, with the partnership of BIRAC and DBT, we remain at the service of scientific community as well as innovation ecosystem. And we hope that this beautiful partnership spanning across many regions and institutions in the country, architected by BIRAC and DBT, creates a humongous opportunity for our innovators, and India succeeds in its fight against COVID, and besides succeeding, becomes of great help to other global partners and countries in the world. Thank you very much, and Jai Hind.
Thank you, Dr. Sharma. Very important information there packaged in that presentation of yours for innovators of the country. I'm sure there will be a lot of questions for you at the which we will take at the end of the presentations. Now, thank you again. Now I would like to invite Dr. Tasleem Arif Sayed, the CEO of CCAMP, to talk about CCAMP and what has been keeping them busy when we are all dealing with COVID-19. Over to you, Dr. Sayed.
Thank you. Good morning to everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Excellent, excellent. So again, good morning, and it's a privilege to be a part of this very important webinar. Sharing the efforts of different organizations connected with CCAMP, and very good inputs already coming from Dr. Manish and Dr. Jiten Sharma. I'm in next few minutes, I'll try to share with everyone some of the efforts that we have done from on the ground at CCAMP with support from many agencies. And it's always a collective effort that actually goes forward. So before I start, I'll say that it has happened because of support from many quarters. Just to begin, set context, I have 2-3 slides about CCAMP. So if we go to the next slide, please. CCAMP largely is, as an enabler. It's a catalyst organization. Our mandate is very clear. Our mandate, while we were set up in 2009-10 at the concept level by DBT, at that time Dr. Ban, along with Professor Vijayaraghavan, idea was to be a catalyst of high-end research and innovation. And that we have been attempting to build on over last 9 to 10 years, build body of work which have a comprehensive, holistic impact on biological science, taking it to the next level, working with frontline scientific researchers, both from academia and industry, and build innovations with early stage, mid stage, and late stage innovation agencies coming from anywhere. If you go to the next slide, please. Largely, CCAMP has 3 verticals where we have different, missions that we have built. One is the technology platforms that allows us to work with research areas, across the entire spectrum of biological sciences. Innovation entrepreneurship, where we engage with entrepreneurs and companies to build innovations with them, and translation accelerator, that is to translate phenomenal academic discoveries into market ready or licensing ready innovations with industry. If I go to the next slide. This is large, broad impact that CCAM has. Just to give you a perspective, idea, while we are set up in Bangalore, our with the support of DBT, BIRAC, Niti Aayog, MIT, State Government of Karnataka, and many other agencies, CARBEX, and so on, international agencies as well, we have been able to build many programs which have allowed us to connect with researchers and innovators across. And the reason I was telling all this is that, as we know, COVID-19 times are phenomenally difficult, more than what we read and more than what we actually can imagine. They are very, very difficult times. And I think this capacity and capability building of last 10 to 12 years that has happened in conjunction with BIRAC and many other organizations, including CCAM, has actually come very handy to all of us. And I'll give you an example why. Because unless you have capacity, to actually respond, you can't do much. And that's what is the best take-home message that we have had to invest in science innovation. Because we have been investing, this capacity that we have built across India collectively actually has come very handy. If you can go to the next slide, please. This is what I was talking about. I think I heard very briefly Dr. Manish talk about how BIRAC has actually taken phenomenal leadership in terms of responding to this situation. But we all know that we come March, we realize that we are not going to be far away from this pandemic. While we saw it emerging in China, we saw it emerging in, and making a havoc, rather creating a havoc in Europe and USA. Somewhere, I think we realize that it's right, the wave is just coming towards us, and right now we know where we are sitting on. But even in March, we realized that we were not equipped enough to do something. We were not equipped enough, and it's not a fault, it's about assessment at our end. We didn't have real good prevention technologies. We didn't have good diagnostic capabilities. We didn't have good treatment capabilities. Of course, vaccines are efforts which are going on. Now, what would happen in this when we do not have our own tools? The external tools that we usually relied on from outside, they were not, available immediately. So we were waiting for a storm in front of us and no tools with us. At that time, on the ground, one of the effort that we did is that, can we now just do a quick, create an accelerator which will identify the near deployment ready innovations, where innovators have tweaked or pivoted their original work which were going on for 1, 2, 3, 4 years, and tried to build something for COVID. And are they, how close? So we actually did this accelerator with so many partners which are listed here, like Social Alpha, PATH, UN Innovation Exchange Program, India Health Fund, CCMB, CSIR program, PATH, and so on, and ACT, the funding program, and so on. What happened is that the idea was to identify the nearly ready innovation, near deployment ready innovations in our own backyard in India, and handhold them and try to see if we can convert them from the promise to realizing the promise, having them impact, give them the impact that is required. If you go to the next slide, what happened is, within a month, we got around 1,100 innovation applications, which we very, very, very rigorously applied. This was not a funding program to begin with. This was more or less hand-holding program to see what last mile issue, which different innovations may have differently, to say what are they have and what can we do. Do you require scale up? Do you require regulatory support? Do you require funding support? What do you require? And try to handhold them for that. So we got around 1,100 applications. Out of that, within over a month, not even within a month, or every week, we more or less picked 5 of the best promise to actually which can make an impact, and selected 31 of them, rather 30 of them. And happy to share that even a month back, 17 to 18 were already in the field serving people. And that was very, very important thing. Idea was to actually make sure the innovations are serving people. We now are in the phase of scaling up their deployment. They have deployed. How do we now scale them up? And that's what we are working on. If you can go to the next slide, please. So this was our weekly target within that month. So as you can see, and I'm sorry about the busy slide, what is happening here is that every week within a month, we came out with 5 to 7 innovations that we thought which was important. This included prevention technologies like new technology for decreasing the microbial or pathogen load in the closed environment, which would be very useful in what you would call it as the ICUs and hospitals and so on. Which technology which combines aerodynamics and textile chemistry. The chemical solutions for prevention of the viral contamination, new diagnostic indigenous capabilities, and new capabilities in ventilators, include non-invasive and invasive ventilators. The vital monitoring capabilities from far, so that you have wearable and doctors do not have to go closer to the patient to do that. A completely holistic approach was used, and many of such innovations are right now in the field. If you can go to the next slide. So while I didn't want to go in details, there are a lot of efforts that have happened that has been very, very successful. And this would not have happened without the help of many other stakeholders like BIRAC and including AMTZ, which has touched many things. So I think credit goes to the entire ecosystem to be able to do that. I think we have miles to go still. We have to continue this fight against this pandemic. The second important initiative, I have 2 more slides to actually close out on, 2 or 3 slides. It was how do we, when we realized the biggest issue was that we didn't have our own inbuilt innovative solutions. That was one of the biggest, I think, limitation we were facing. So idea was that can we now build a platform which would be public-private partnership to have to where we can bring in the government, we can bring in the academic capabilities, we can bring in the private capabilities, and say that can we now have a platform where all of them come together as a consortium and have one by one target achieved. And that's where I think late May, early June, with the support of Dr. Swaroop and from her concept, as well as support from Dr. Kiran Majumdar Shaw and other many players, we launched what we call it a National Biomedical Resource Indigenization Consortium, where CCAMP is the organization and the host partner. It's supported by NBM, and the industry partners are CII and ABLE. If you go to the next slide, the aim of this consortium, as I mentioned, is to have very targeted capacity building for long-term indigenization of biomedical resources. But to begin with, our immediate target has to be COVID-19. So if you, and that's where I think that's our current effort, which we have done. And if you go to the next slide, you will see the first-hand result of what has happened. Within a month, our first target was that can we build indigenous high capability of and high capacity of high quality RT-PCR kits, because that still remains a challenge. We all know that we all should get tested, to be honest, but we can't do it because of many reasons. So for that to build the capacity where we can actually hopefully go towards 1, 2, 3 million tests per day, which is important, we need to have that capacity built in-house. We can't go outside. So within a month, we have 35 to 40 organizations have come together on this consortium and now build capacity, some are working on the kit manufacturing side, some are working on the kit ingredient side and trying to build that capacity. But because of this, a lot of new kits, high number of kits are right now coming out. One is to get license. The second is to have high scale of production, where there are nuances of availability of primers, availability of river transcriptase, and so on and so forth is crucial. And that's what we are attempting to do. On NBRIC, we continue to put our efforts in RT-PCR, but then we are going to go ahead with the serological test, which will be important for screening going forward, and then vaccines and so on, which are going to be further important as well. What I was trying to possibly conclude now is to say that I wanted to say these 2 main efforts, both in terms of the COVID-19 deployment accelerator, as well as the indigenization consortium, both have happened, and of course, CCAM is happy to contribute there because of long-term investment in science and innovation that has happened. And that is something we are very, very excited about, and we should continue to do that. I'll conclude by sharing my coordinates, which are available here, and happy to be connected on that. But I strongly believe that a lot of us, everyone, has actually done the best they can do, but we are still in the middle of crisis. We need to continue this effort. I think we need to build more and more innovations in-house and make sure that will allow us to prevent more spread, allow us to do early diagnostics, and allow us to have better treatment of patients, which is the crucial most thing. So with that hope and acknowledging great work done by DBT and its partners, and thanking India Alliance for this opportunity, who has been doing phenomenal scientific support as well, I conclude and happy to take questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Syed. Very important points made in the presentation there, that capacity building, partnerships and collaborations are absolutely essential for dealing with global challenges like COVID-19. With that, we will move into our question and answer session. We have, I think, 10 minutes for our session, and our question box is overflowing. So I will just jump to the questions there. The first one is for Dr. Diwan. Which scheme shall be used for funding of a new investigational drug after proof of concept stage?
See, there were a couple of funding initiatives, as I mentioned. One was the consortium call. We had 2 rounds of it. In the first round, which concluded on 30th of April, we supported, close shortlisted about 71 proposals. Second consortium call round closed on 15th of May. So I would believe that many of us would have actually availed that opportunity. In that, the final outcome is on the way, and we have supported large number of facilitations from, let's say, 5 lakh up to 50 crore per such proposition. In case somebody has missed that opportunity, we have now rolled out our BIPP and SIB recall, which is just been rolled out. So you might want to explore that. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Diwan. The next one is for Dr. Sharma. How Andhra Pradesh MedTech zone based companies have been able to save on development costs and sell these at lower costs compared to those companies located outside the zone?
That's a nice question, particularly from an economist. I'm sure there must be non-technology members also in the audience. Excellent question. It's not about Andhra Pradesh zone saving on cost in the campus alone. Whenever you provide for a scientific facility that otherwise costs 40 to 60 crores to make, or 100 crores to make, depending upon the size and capabilities of the facility, you are actually taking off a huge capital burden from the manufacturers onto a third-party entity. That's number one. So not just in COVID, even in a normal circumstance, any service provided at AMTZ in terms of scientific handholding and technological support makes the production much cheaper than what it would otherwise be. Now for COVID, the costs of both diagnostics as well as ventilators are decided by the central government. So any supplier in the country will have to meet those costs to ensure that that supplies become market worthy. Now, AMTZ simply allows it to happen more easily by absorbing a large number of infrastructural costs. But an ecosystem model is the best model for cost-effective production, because the common scientific facilities, the cost goes off the burden from the individual manufacturer or innovator.
Thank you. The next one, I think, is for all of you. What solutions, innovations can be thought of for maintaining and enhancing mother and child nutrition during these times of unemployment? Is the focus being diverted to only meeting hunger needs and not nutrition?
Dr. Diwan, would you like to answer that? Otherwise, I can comment if you allow.
Kindly go ahead, Jitendra. I do not have a very specific answer to this, but in general, I think there is a consciousness of immunity boosting, and that has kind of everyone, each one of us aware, even even the non-childbearing people also, right? Both men and women, and especially if there are mother and child in the family, there is large emphasis that the younger beings are facilitated with good nutrition, high immunity, like hygienic environment, so that the exposure and to the virus as well as ability to fight against virus can be enhanced. So, Jiten, you want to add something to this? Kindly go ahead.
Yeah. I'm just going to say that in the system of maternal and child care, nutrition has always been a key component. That's why we have thousands and thousands and lakhs of Anganwadi centers, midday meal schemes, and so on. But all these schemes which provide for milk, eggs, meals are output driven, hoping that what we provide is first consumed by the beneficiary. After it is consumed and hoping it is consumed, it leads to absorption, and that absorption leads to nutrition. Now, this is a very output-driven program. And we played with a small idea earlier in one of the pilot programs, where we said, knowing that the entire family these days depend on internet, right from their admission to IRCTC ticket booking and so on, what if every woman which is between the age of 18 and 35 is given a 1 GB of data for per day free, provided once in every 3 months her hemoglobin is tested and that hemoglobin is not less than 12. Then the entire family ensures that she eats, she remains healthy because they depend upon her data package which comes for free to the family. Now, all I'm trying to say is, while we have a substantial number of output-driven programs, particularly in challenges that we have faced in the new world of COVID, if we can start integrating technology, facilities, partnerships between non-health stakeholders and outcomes that we expect in a beneficiary, I think the endpoints and outcomes will be much different and much more progressive.
Thank you, Dr. Sharma. Very insightful. Dr. Sayed, would you like to also take a go at that question?
Yeah, surely. No, absolutely. I think both, in general, I think we know that the health of mother is one of the most crucial aspect for ages, and more so in situations where you need to be much more stronger in terms of your health to prevent any infections, be it COVID or any. I think a very aligned, nutritional plan for mothers would be very, very crucial, as well as neonates. Let's take it that way. Of course, and the young babies has to be actually brought in, because this is the entire pandemic which we are seeing is going to be a huge public health issue. It's not going to be only patient driven. It's going to be a public health issue where elderly will have different effect. We are going to see psychological symptoms going forward. We are going to see many other aspects. And just coming back to the original question, I think maternal
Yes.
and young child will be a very crucial aspect. So we have to see the everything, not only from a direct impact, but indirect impact. So I would just, possibly say that it's a very crucial component, and we all should begin. And I think related agencies should start now, rather than responding, start proactively looking at all these components, psychological components, elderly components, young components, and build those plans already.
Thank you. We have another one, a general one that maybe Dr. Sayed, you can answer first, and then we can hear from Dr. Sharma and Dr. Diwan. I would like to know about the capability of Indian companies in supplying required and expensive DNA and protein reagents for various diagnostic kits. Are we still relying on foreign companies, or we have achieved the Atma Nirbharta in this case?
It's interesting questions. I would say that I think we traditionally, I think we all accept that yes, we have heavily relied on international supply of the reagents, high quality reagents, and so on. And because it was the process was import driven, we never had a very strong indigenous companies building at a higher capability and capacity. But this actually, if you look at numbers, and I do not have it, but the ratio has changed significantly as we speak. The numbers are changing. In March, the percentage of kits that were coming from outside, and today in the middle of July, the percentage of kits for COVID coming from outside, the ratio has changed significantly. We are towards Atmanirbharta. It will never be 100% game. It will never be 100-0. But most important, we have to have our own capacity, and that is something that
Yes.
It's one of the biggest learning lesson that we have to have our own capacity to respond immediately in such crisis time. We cannot just look outside and say help. We have to have that, and that is one of the biggest learning lesson. I'm very happy that we have, together with DBT and others, have now built this consortium, which is not only for COVID but for a long term any biomedical resource capability indigenously. So I think we are towards that.
Yes, absolutely. Dr. Diwan, would you like to add to that?
I think this is work in progress, and COVID situation has made all of us realize that how critical it is when we are looking at encouraging self capabilities. We are looking at discouraging imports. So in order to discourage imports, we need to have that capacity built in-house. So I think a lot of effort is now being infused. I think Jitendra would definitely have a quantitative number on that. But two things I would like to highlight here. One is realization, policy intervention. Even DPIIT has provision the Indian companies getting priority in the open tenders for the government orders. So that's a large incentive. The efforts which are being done through this consortium, the BRIC, as well as the command strategy at AMTZ, these are efforts from the enabler sides. But I think one larger question is also there, that is there an acceptability of solutions which are made in India? Are we ready to adopt them at will, just like any other situation? The COVID has brought us to a situation when the imported solutions, or there were no solutions to begin with. Everybody started at one time. So Indian ecosystem has responded to certain level. But if you take the analogy in other situations, we typically tend to drive towards imported solutions, solutions which are prepared from somebody else. And then we say that we are matching up to these solutions by Make in India. So this is I think, turning point where Indian solutions can take the lead and come out, stand as competitive as anybody else, and start exporting too. So I would request Dr. Jitendra to add some numbers to this. Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you, Dr. Diwan. Yeah, Dr. Sharma, I would like to have a comment from you on that, and we will then conclude the webinar because it's 12, right? We are right at 12.
Right.
Thank you. Please go ahead.
I completely agree with my good friend Dr. Taslim as well as Dr. Manish. Now, let us understand why and when do we import. One, we import when we don't know how to make something. For example, helium-free superconducting magnet for an MRI, right? That's where we import because we don't know the science of making. The second reason when we import is when it does not become a viable business. Now, these are two very different and distinct reasons. Now, these high quality reagents, and Dr. Tasleem, Dr. Manish, their teams and multiple institutions and the knowledge we have makes us confidently say that we imported these reagents not because we did not know the science, but because they could never become viable businesses in themselves, because we have enough to deliver a high quality reagent. Now, for making it a sustainable and high quality business, let me just give you the number because Dr. Manish requested. Yesterday, for the first time, ICMR has said we have tested more than 3 lakhs individuals in a day, right? Let us assume that India also becomes an exporter of kits and our net consumption in a day is, for example, 5 lakh tests a day. If you look at the reagent, master mix, everything, we need about 50 ODs of oligo concentrates to make 10,000 tests. So for 5 lakh tests a day, internal consumption as well as export, we would need 2,500 ODs of oligos. Current capacity is 600 ODs and increasing. And that's why Dr. Manish very rightly mentioned that it's a work in progress. But by making 600 ODs in a day, we have proved that we can make it and use the volume both in the domestic market as well as international market, a fulcrum to shift the equilibrium in the favor of Indian manufacturing. And if this 600 can continue to rise, which it is because DBT, AMTZ, Command Consortium, companies here, elsewhere in the country, the NBRIC Association, all of us are pooling energies and synergies into this growth chart. This 600 becomes 2,500 a day, 3,000 a day ODs. We would be confidently be able to supply the back-end complex reagents of the kits in a much better way. And I must confess that all of us put together, the DBT, the partners, the NBRIC, the AMTZ DBT Command Consortium, the BIRAC, we have clinched this moment. And we are on a tremendous growth chart where we would be making India an Atmanirbhar country in terms of the baseline reagent that goes into manufacturing of kits. Over to you, and thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you, Dr. Sharma. Very interesting perspective there. And with this, I would like to thank all our speakers today for their time. It was really wonderful to see how we are together tackling COVID-19. A very enriching discussion is what we had today. And I also thank all the attendees who have participated and engaged with us. I can still see that we are almost houseful. So we will be back again with another webinar soon to talk about more about the response of science to COVID-19. The information will be available on the information will be available on our channels, our social media channels, and on our website. So until then, stay safe, take care, and see you back again soon.
Thank you.
Bye. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye.